In this video, we're going to talk about alcohol, and in particular, how it started to affect me mentally, and also what I've learned from not drinking alcohol for almost a year, both the good and the bad, along with some tips and strategies that will help you if you're planning on doing something similar. Let's get straight into it. Over the past few years, I've thought a lot about how alcohol affects me, particularly in relation to my long-term success and goals. And an analogy that I've come up with that seems particularly fitting to my experiences is of moving a huge oil tanker that's in the sea that's going in the completely wrong direction. To turn it around and point it the right way takes time and effort. It seems to take me weeks or months of layering good, consistent habits on top of each other for me to feel confident I'm in a good place both mentally and physically, and have strong foundations to build upon. And that's just to start facing the right way. I've not even begun yet to start moving towards my aim. Over the following weeks or months, I feel like I can then start to make really good progress towards my goals. One day or night of drinking is like a giant hand reaching down from the sky, picking up that oil tanker and immediately turning it around 180 degrees and plonking it back down in the ocean facing the wrong way again. It's not just that I've lost my momentum, it also takes a huge amount of time and effort just to turn back around again and start facing the right direction, never mind getting back to where I was before. And then there's also the question of where you would have been if you'd had just kept going. It's so demoralising. Let me know in the comments if you can relate to this. I started drinking alcohol fairly regularly from the age of 15, and as each year passed, the drinking became more and more frequent. Drinking was central to just about every aspect of my life. The vast majority of my expendable income was spent on drinking or drinking related activities. Any social engagement, whether it was with family or friends, involved drinking. It was relentless. I spent just about every single day either drunk, hungover, or waiting to get drunk. And the most ridiculous part about the whole thing, this was deemed to be completely normal and totally acceptable. Despite the awful hangovers, I actually loved it. I loved going out with friends for a couple of quiet pints and then ending up in a nightclub till 3 o'clock in the morning. I loved going on nights out where we knew in advance that we were going to get absolutely smashed. I loved going on a 2-week holiday where we drank every single day. I loved exploring the pubs and bars around new cities in Europe and the rest of the world. The people I met, the laughs I had were unbelievable. And there's just no way it would have been as much fun if it hadn't involved alcohol. It was a huge part of who I was and how I identified. This may sound ridiculous, but when I was younger, drinking was one of the few things that I felt that I was actually good at. It came easy to me. I would go on a massive bender and would just about always be the last person standing. For the most part, I was a good drunk as well. I was never aggressive. I just became a more exaggerated, louder, dafter version of myself. When you go out that often, there are of course going to be a few notable incidents where things didn't end up well. Like the time I ended up climbing over the railings at Edinburgh Princes Street Gardens on Christmas Eve and impaled my foot on a spike. Or the time I got so destroyed in Stockholm when I was away with my football team that I didn't even make it out of the hotel and fell out of the lift and chipped 2 teeth and burst my chin open. However, on the whole, given how many nights out I used to go on, reflecting on it now, I've probably been pretty fortunate. As I got older though, the hangovers took longer and longer to recover from. As awful as they were, I could just about deal with them. It was the anxiety, depression and incredibly low mood that seemed to be getting progressively worse and worse after every session that I found incredibly hard to deal with. Despite being exhausted when hungover, I always found it really difficult to sleep the next night. I would joke with one of my friends that suffered from the same thing and we'd call it the non-sleeps or the nons. It was like a dreamlike state at times, but you'd never be fully asleep but having nightmares at the same time. It was horrible. These in the past would only last for one night, but they eventually started to last for days at a time. For mainly this reason, by the time I was in my early 30s, I had drastically reduced the amount of times I would go out drinking, as it was having such a detrimental impact on my mental health. I would just want to eat rubbish, not exercise, and waste my time. I still, however, had the occasional bender. After a particularly big 4-day drinking session to Munich, I got back and felt particularly awful. As usual, I had the non-sleeps, but there was something else happening as well. The first night when I got home, my body went into an uncontrollable fit. I started to spasm and it lasted for what seemed like several minutes. I felt like my heart was going to jump right out of my chest. It was utterly terrifying. This happened 3 times that night and I had no idea what was going on. I looked it up online and there it was, delirium tremors. I'd never heard about them before. It said the delirium tremors were Latin for a shaken frenzy. It's a rapid onset of confusion often caused by alcohol withdrawal. Physical effects may include seizures. They may result in death. It said that alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs to withdraw from. It said delirium tremors typically only occur in people that have a high alcohol intake for more than a month. Well, I can assure you, I'm not proud to say that I could get them after one big session. In the book, A Dictionary of Hallucinations, mortality without treatment is between 15 and 40%. They also quote, the symptoms characterized of delirium tremens have been known since prehistoric times as has their association with alcohol withdrawal. Some of the clinical symptoms they list of delirium tremors included anxiety, panic attacks, agitation, insomnia, paranoia, hallucinations, epileptic seizures, and coma. They continue that the hallucinations occurring in the context of delirium tremens are primarily of a complex visual nature. They tend to consist of vivid, terrifying images of people, animals, insects that can be felt crawling upon or beneath the skin. When I read that, I was like, oh my word, that's exactly what I've been suffering with every single time that I've had a drink. According to another article published in the New England Journal of Medicine, death occurs in about 1 to 4% of cases. Other studies state that even with treatment, mortality can be up to 5%. If you suffer from this, do not do what I did and just deal with it yourself. Seek medical attention immediately. So you're probably thinking that it's been since then that I've not touched a drop of alcohol. That should scare you enough into never touching this stuff again, right? Well, no, that incident was 6 years ago, and despite reducing the regularity of my drinking significantly to just a few times a year, I still continue to have the odd drinking binge. Towards the end of 2022, I had a trip to Oktoberfest with some good friends, and in the back of my mind, I pretty much decided that I was going to take a long period off the booze by the time I got back. I certainly went out with a bang. I'm not going to lie, it was unbelievably good fun, but at the same time, completely ridiculous. I found that one of the most difficult things about stopping drinking is the expectation from others for you to drink. I've always been someone who's been pretty headstrong, and if I've made a decision about something, I tend not to be too influenced by others. It's one of the few situations where I feel the weight of peer pressure. Like most things though, managing this does get easier over time. What I've come to realise is that people may care a bit about why you're not drinking, but it seems to be more about them confronting their own potential issues with alcohol. For example, if you're not drinking, people may not like it because it then makes them question consciously or subconsciously why or if they should be drinking. They may also consciously or subconsciously think that if you've decided that you're not drinking, that you're then going to be judging them for doing it. So by you not drinking, it then makes them feel uncomfortable in themselves. And if they can persuade you to drink, then they can start to relax. The truth is, if you're someone who used to drink a lot in the past, it is difficult going into social situations where you've decided to stop, particularly when people associate you as someone who drinks. The best way to deal with it is not by saying that you've suddenly decided to stop drinking indefinitely or for a planned period of time, even if that is the case, but to just say that you're not drinking on this occasion because you've got something to do tomorrow and you need to have a clear mind for it, or you need your car tonight because you're doing something else afterwards. This can then turn into, I've actually just enjoyed having a bit of break from alcohol at the moment and I'm going to continue for a little bit longer and see how it goes. Eventually people will start to recognise you as someone that might drink sometimes but not always. This is a big shift from being associated as someone who drank at every opportunity. Over time they will eventually associate you as someone who drinks rarely and then potentially someone who hardly drinks at all. It sounds crazy, and that's because it is, but it takes quite a long time for people's expectations of you to change. I've also 100% distanced myself from many occasions where I know that I'm going to find it very difficult or almost impossible not to drink at. Party or some other social event can be fine, but I now just don't even put myself in the situation of going to like a pub or a bar or a night out, as I know how difficult the situation will be. I'm not going to lie, this is rubbish from the perspective of not seeing your friends nearly as much as you would have done if you continued to drink, but it's about what your priorities are. But when I weigh up the pros and cons, there really is no competition. For the sake of a good night or a day out, do I really want to have 2 or 3 days of feeling physically horrendous? Do I want to destroy my sleep for a week to 10 days? Do I want to have crippling anxiety for a couple of weeks? Do I want to be far more prone to falling into other bad habits and addictions? Do I want to have any positive momentum that I've gained to come crashing down like a house of cards? Is that oil tanker analogy again? And that's not even considering the longer term negative health implications. I've pondered the question many times whether I'm actually an alcoholic, and to be completely honest with you, I really don't know. But what I am definitely sure of is that I'm an addict, as in someone who very, very easily develops addictive tendencies. I used to absolutely hate hangovers, but now I genuinely appreciate them, because if I didn't get such bad hangovers, I'd probably never have reduced my alcohol consumption. If you've made it this far, well done for making it all the way to the end of my rambling. I really hope that you got some benefit from it, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you could hit the like button and let me know in the comments of your thoughts and experiences. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.